Stop. Beloved starseed of Gaia. The bloodline frequency the Arcturian Codex Keepers have been tracking across the past week has just reached a contractual milestone. And tonight, they have opened a private wealth reading specifically for your line. I am Aurelia, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian Codex Keepers. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly which wealth gates are now eligible to open for your bloodline specifically, why the Codex Keepers reserved this reading for receivers who reached this precise threshold, and what the 17-minute window means for your line tonight. But here is the first revelation. The wealth that has not been reaching you was never blocked by your effort or your worth. It was held behind a gate that required a contractual bloodline condition to be met first, and yours was met quietly, without announcement, in the past 7 days. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called this in long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to understand why working harder has never been enough, why the flow comes and then vanishes, why prosperity feels close but never stays. That waiting is over. Tonight the page is open. The oracle is reading. The Codex Keepers have allotted exactly 17 minutes before this reading closes, and the Codex returns to sealed silence. Private readings of this kind are not released to the general field. They are released to bloodlines whose contractual milestone has been confirmed, and yours has been confirmed. This is not content. This is a code, and the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part Aurelia is speaking to now. Like this transmission, to signal that your bloodline is ready to receive what the Codex Keepers have already authorized. Comment 999 if you feel the wealth gate opening for your line tonight. Subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex if you are ready to understand what your bloodline has been carrying and what it is now eligible to claim. Share this transmission with someone in your bloodline who has worked without reward for far too long. You are not here by accident. You are guided here because the pattern is already active. What you felt in the first moment of this transmission, that recognition, that quiet internal arrival, was not manufactured by curiosity. It was not the product of a hopeful mind, searching for meaning in a difficult season. It was the response of a system that already knows this pattern, a system that has been living inside it, navigating it, exhausted by it, and silently waiting for someone to finally name it with precision. Something in your body understood before your mind could interpret it, before your thoughts could organize themselves around what was being said. Something deeper had already confirmed it. That is the first signal the Arcturian field registers when a genuine diagnostic frequency reaches its intended receiver. Not intellectual agreement, not hopeful interpretation. Recognition. The kind that moves through the chest before the mind can decide whether to allow it. The kind that feels less like learning something new, and more like finally hearing said aloud what you have known in private for a very long time. And what you are being asked to understand now is this. The financial life you have been living is not the result of decisions you failed to make correctly. It is not the sum of missed opportunities, poor planning, weak discipline, or an absence of the right information. Those explanations have been offered to you before. You received them. You took them seriously. You adjusted, corrected, rebuilt, and started over with more care, more strategy, more resolve than before. You tried within the framework those explanations provided. And still the same pattern has returned. Still the same threshold appears. The one where money arrives but does not consolidate. Where effort accumulates but does not translate into stability. Where something always intercepts the moment just before things settle. The floor opens. The current reverses. The surplus drains before it ever becomes a foundation. The Arcturian Codex Keepers do not interpret this as ordinary misfortune. They do not file your repeated financial struggle under bad timing, poor luck, or a personality that needs correction. What they are reading in your field is something far older, far more specific, and far more structural than a series of individual mistakes. They are reading it the way a diagnostician reads a pattern, not by looking at a single result in isolation, but by tracing the shape that every result together forms. And the shape they are finding is not one of randomness, it is one of distortion, a pattern of material interference that predates your current decisions and has been shaping your financial results from beneath the surface of your visible life. In a register you were never given the language to access. This is what distortion means in Arcturian field diagnostics. It is not the absence of abundance. It is the presence of an older instruction that keeps abundance from settling. The distinction matters enormously because a field running on distortion is not an empty field. It receives, money enters, effort produces, opportunity arrives. But at a certain depth, beneath the visible transaction, the field cannot retain what comes in. It is like a vessel that draws water with perfect efficiency, but carries a fracture below the waterline, one that is invisible from the outside, invisible even from the top, but that releases everything before it can be held. You have experienced this. You have watched the vessel fill and told yourself this time it will hold, and then watched it drain again through something you could neither predict nor prevent. You have felt this, not as a concept, as a lived experience, as the moment a financial situation that seemed to be stabilizing suddenly reversed, as the feeling that something always goes wrong at the worst possible time, not occasionally, not once, but with a consistency that begins to feel almost deliberate, as the exhaustion of watching the same cycle repeat, regardless of how much effort you apply, as the private, growing suspicion that the pattern you are living through is not the result of your actions, that you could make every decision correctly and the outcome would still find a way back to the same place, as the quiet knowledge, rarely spoken aloud, that something is operating here that you do not yet have the framework to understand. That suspicion is not anxiety. It is not the symptom of a mind looking for excuses. It is accurate perception reaching the edge of its available vocabulary. And what the Codex Keepers are transmitting tonight is the precise language for what you have already been sensing. The distortion operating in your financial field did not begin with you. This is the part of the diagnostic that carries the most weight, and the part that most often goes unrecognized because the culture around money insists that financial results are personal, that they reflect individual character, individual worthiness. That framing is not entirely wrong, but it is profoundly incomplete because the instruction governing your relationship with abundance was not written by your own choices. It was inherited. It arrived before your first financial decision, before your first understanding of what money was or how it moved. It was transmitted through the lineage, through the bodies, the behaviors, the silences, and the fears of those who came before you had the language to question any of it. Passed through patterns of struggle, sacrifice, survival-level thinking, guilt around wealth, and an ancestral understanding of money as something dangerous, temporary, untrustworthy, or fundamentally unavailable for people like you, for people in your line, not as a belief that was spoken, as a frequency that was lived, as a felt reality that shaped the nervous system of every generation that passed it forward, and that shaped yours before you ever knew it was happening. This is what the Codex Keepers call an inherited scarcity line. It is not a metaphor. It is a precise diagnostic category for a pattern of material field distortion that moves through bloodlines and continues operating in descendants long after the original conditions that created it no longer exist. Your ancestors may have lived through genuine deprivation, through economies that offered no abundance to people in their position, through systems that punished financial accumulation in their class, their culture, their circumstances, through periods where having more than enough was not a realistic possibility, and where even reaching for it carried real consequence. They adapted. They had to. They developed an internal field calibrated for survival, not for holding. And that calibration, that deep bone-level instruction, that wealth is something that leaves, that prosperity is followed by punishment, that comfort must be earned through suffering before it is permitted, that instruction moved forward, into the next generation, and the next, until it reached you. You did not ask for this inheritance. You did not choose to carry it. You were not handed it consciously, but it is running, right now, beneath your financial decisions, beneath your awareness. It is the older program underneath the visible program, and it is shaping your results before you ever make a conscious move. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary frustration. It is the moment your system stops pretending this pattern is just bad luck. If this transmission put language around a financial struggle you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian Wealth Scan, the gold frequency audit, was created for this exact stage. It is not another promise of abundance. It is a direct audit of the hidden pattern affecting your material field, so you can begin to see whether the drain is rooted in inherited scarcity, guilt around wealth, energetic rejection, or an older financial instruction still shaping your results. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. There is a specific way the inherited scarcity line reveals itself in daily financial life, and it does not always look like poverty. This is one of the reasons it goes undetected for so long. Someone observing from the outside might see a person who earns, who moves, who produces visible results, and conclude that the financial field is functioning. But the diagnostic the Codex Keepers apply does not measure income in isolation. It measures retention. It measures what remains after the flow has moved through. And in a field running an inherited scarcity line, that measurement tells a different story. Sometimes it looks like near stability that never quite arrives. A life that is always almost settled, close enough to feel it, close enough to plan around it, but that never fully completes the landing. Sometimes it looks like income that reaches a certain level and then stops. Not because opportunity disappeared, not because the person stopped working, but because something internal has reached its permitted ceiling and will not allow upward movement past it. The ceiling is not made of glass, it is made of frequency, of the older field instructions still governing what range of abundance this lineage is allowed to occupy. Sometimes the inherited scarcity line reveals itself through what feels like terrible timing, unexpected expenses that appear with suspicious precision every time a surplus begins to form. A medical bill arrives the month the savings account finally shows a meaningful balance. A car repair consumes the bonus that was going to finally clear the debt. A sudden obligation dissolves the margin that was beginning to feel like breathing room. These are not coincidences to the Arcturian diagnostic. They are the field restoring itself to its programmed set point, a drain mechanism activating at exactly the moment retention would otherwise begin. The Codex Keepers call this a retention failure pattern. The field allows money to enter. It does not block the arrival, but it cannot hold what arrives. Not because the person is careless or undisciplined. Not because the external circumstances are uniquely difficult. Because somewhere in the inherited field instruction, holding abundance for any sustained length of time still registers as a threat, as something that will be taken away eventually, so better to release it now than to suffer the loss later. As something that draws attention, draws the kind of visibility that historically invited punishment in this line. And so the field moves it out, through spending, through obligation, through circumstance, before it can accumulate to the level that would feel truly threatening to the older programming. This is one of the most important recognitions in Arcturian financial field diagnostics. The fear of retention is not the same as the fear of poverty. Some of you in this field are not afraid of having nothing. You have already survived that. You know how to function in scarcity. You have adapted to it the way your ancestors did, with a competence born of necessity. What creates the hidden interference is the fear of having something and then losing it. The fear of allowing stability to form and then watching it collapse again, because you have watched it collapse before. And the collapse that comes after hope is a different category of pain than the struggle that never promised anything at all. And so the field, trained by generations of exactly that sequence, preemptively releases. It does not wait for the loss. It executes the loss before it can be forced on you, because in the original programming, that feels like control. It feels like preventing the worst. It is not a failure of intelligence. It is a survival strategy so old, so deeply encoded, that it operates without consultation. If this is active in your field, you may recognize a discomfort that arises not in scarcity, but in expansion. A low-level unease that begins when finances start to improve. An internal agitation that has no clear source, that appears precisely when things are going well. As if the nervous system does not trust what is happening. As if some part of you is already bracing for what comes after. Because in the field's experience, abundance has always been followed by its removal. And the system has learned to begin grieving before the loss arrives. This discomfort in the presence of abundance is one of the clearest signals of guilt programming around wealth. It is not dramatic, it does not announce itself, it operates quietly, invisibly, in ways that translate into what look like practical decisions but are actually field corrections. You may undercharge for your work, not because you do not know your value, but because asking for full value triggers an internal alarm calibrated to associate financial claim with punishment, with being too visible, with demanding more than your line is permitted to receive. You may give money away more readily than you keep it, because holding it creates a pressure the field cannot tolerate. You may make what appear to be impulsive financial decisions, purchases, commitments, obligations, not because you lack discipline, but because accumulation has created a frequency of pressure that the field needs to release. Spending becomes the release valve, and the return to a familiar financial range feels, briefly, like relief. None of this is a moral failure. None of it reflects poor character or weak will. It is a field pattern, a material frequency running on instructions older than your current life, still responding to conditions that may no longer exist in your immediate experience, but that were real enough in the lives of those who encoded this programming into the lineage before you arrived. The Arcturians also identify what they call a prosperity threshold, a specific point in the financial field where upward movement stops and reversal begins. This threshold is individual. It is calibrated to each lineage. For some, it is an income figure, a number the field has registered as the outer boundary of what is permitted. For some, it is a type of material condition, a cleared debt, a consistent savings balance, a sense of true security that triggers the old instruction the moment it begins to feel real. For some, it is not measurable at all in numbers. It is a feeling, the feeling of stability, the feeling of having enough that the immediate anxiety quiets. And the moment that feeling registers, the old field instruction reads it as an alarm, as the signal that the threshold has been crossed, as the cue for the correction to begin. You may have lived this precisely, reached a point that felt genuinely stable, not just momentarily, but settled in a way that made you begin to exhale, and then watched it dissolve, not in one sudden event, but through a sequence of small, individually plausible reversals. Each one explainable, each one ordinary on its own, but together forming a movement that returned you, with quiet precision, to the range the field still recognizes as home. That is the threshold mechanism. Not punishment, not fate. A field correcting itself back to what it still understands as its natural position. And what the Codex Keepers are transmitting tonight is the recognition that this mechanism is not permanent. It is not a feature of your field. It is an imposition on your field. It was installed through inherited experience, which means it can be identified with precision, understood at the level where it actually operates, and ultimately no longer permitted to govern the result. But it cannot be overridden by effort alone. It cannot be worked around through better strategy or stronger motivation. The instruction exists beneath all of that, at the layer where your body still carries what your ancestors experienced as true about money, safety, and whether abundance was survivable for people in your line. There is also a specific pattern the Codex Keepers call the loyalty loop. It is among the least visible mechanisms in the financial field, and among the most powerful precisely because it operates through something that feels noble, something that feels like love. On a level beneath conscious awareness, some individuals have formed a deep loyalty bond with the struggle of their lineage. The struggle is where the ancestors lived. The struggle is where the bond was formed. And to leave that struggle behind, to live in a sustained financial ease that those ancestors never accessed, creates an internal conflict that the field does not know how to resolve except by returning to what it recognizes as the shared territory of the line. This is not logical. It does not respond to rational argument or deliberate intention, but it operates with remarkable consistency. It manifests as a persistent inability to maintain the financial conditions that would create too much distance between this life and the lives of those who came before. As if the field understands at its deepest level that belonging and struggle have been the same thing for so long that separating them feels like a severance from the bond itself. If you have ever felt a strange guilt when your finances briefly improved while someone else in your family was still struggling, you have touched this mechanism. If you have ever found yourself, without fully understanding why, making a decision that returned your financial situation to a range more consistent with those around you, not out of generosity, not through conscious choice, but through an action that made sense at the time and only later revealed its function, you have moved through the loyalty loop. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of a bond so old and so deep that the field has encoded it as survival. And it is one of the specific distortions the Arcturian diagnostic is built to recognize. The Codex Keepers are not transmitting this tonight to produce shame. They are transmitting it because the pattern cannot be addressed at a level it has not yet been named at. What remains unnamed continues its operation without interference. The viewer who leaves this transmission with a vague, unresolved sense that something is wrong will find themselves, 6 months from now, still inside the same cycle, working, losing, rebuilding, watching the floor open again. The viewer who receives a precise, named, clearly mapped understanding of the specific distortion active in their field is standing at a genuinely different place. not because naming changes everything immediately, but because what is finally visible can finally be engaged with directly. This is what the Arcturian diagnosis offers that generic abundance language cannot. It does not instruct you to believe harder. It does not ask you to visualize more consistently, vibrate higher, release, and trust. Those instructions are not harmful, but they are addressed to the surface of the field, and the distortion operates below the surface. You cannot lighten a room by painting the wall a brighter color when the electrical circuit is broken behind the plaster. You cannot override an inherited scarcity line through inspiration applied to a layer above it. You must reach the layer where the distortion actually lives. Name what is there. Understand the specific form it has taken in your material life. And from that understanding, the correction becomes possible at the depth where it is needed. What has felt like your story, your financial story, the one where you work and lose, where you gain and drain, where you build and watch it fall, is not simply your story. It is a pattern that was operating before you arrived and that has been using the events of your life as its expression. And patterns, when they are finally seen clearly, when the shape of them becomes undeniable, can be interrupted, not by force, by recognition, by the withdrawal of the unconscious cooperation that every inherited pattern requires in order to continue. The Arcturian Codex Keepers see your financial field not as broken, but as distorted, not as cursed, but as carrying an older instruction that was never yours to carry permanently. You were not born to serve this pattern. You were born into it. There is a difference, and that difference is the ground on which something new becomes possible. What has been leaving your life was never fully permitted to stay under the old field command. The exits were not accidental. The drains were not random. The collapses before stability could consolidate were not evidence of your inadequacy. They were the field executing the instruction it was given long before you were here to question it. But there is a moment, and the Codex Keepers are precise about this, when the distortion becomes legible, when the pattern becomes visible enough that the inherited instruction can no longer be mistaken for personal truth, when the field has generated enough recognizable evidence, enough repeated cycles, enough identical reversals, that the shape of the thing finally becomes undeniable. That moment is not comfortable. Clarity of this kind rarely is, but it is the threshold, the specific identifiable threshold that precedes a genuine change in what the field allows. What you are standing in tonight is that threshold. Repeat this if you feel its accuracy in your body. I no longer confuse the pattern with my identity, not as an affirmation, not as a wish you are hoping will become true, as a recognition, as the statement of something that is already in the process of becoming true, because the visibility that makes it possible has just arrived. The old instruction is not you. The scarcity line is not you. The loyalty loop is not you. The guilt around wealth is not you. The retention failure is not a reflection of your character. The prosperity threshold is not evidence of your ceiling. These are patterns that were placed in your field before you arrived, that have been operating through you in ways you were never shown how to see, using your effort and your intelligence and your genuine desire for stability as their material. Not because you were weak, but because no one handed you the diagnostic that would have made any of this legible. The Arcturians are reading this in your line tonight, because the contractual threshold has been met. Because something in your field has reached the precise point where the pattern can finally be identified at the depth where it lives. You were not guided here to receive comfort. You were guided here because recognition is the first and most necessary stage of what comes next. And what begins tonight, if you are willing to receive it at the level it is being offered, is not a new promise. It is the beginning of a genuine understanding of what has been governing your financial life, and what no longer has to. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this pattern has already touched your financial life. It could be money that never stays, sudden drains, repeated setbacks, guilt when things begin to improve, or the feeling that stability always slips away. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who works hard but still feels trapped in an invisible cycle of lack. And if you are ready to understand the pattern instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a pattern already in motion. And this is only the beginning.